welcome to the Holiday and Cruise Clinic. I'm Jemma Gofton with another edition of the programme that aims to make your next cruise or holiday as problem-free and relaxing as possible. So if you have a holiday, cruise or travel-related question, here's how to get in touch. You can search for us on Facebook and Twitter. Just search for the Holiday and Cruise channel. Or you can send in your questions to our website, www.holidayandcruisechannel.co.uk. Or you can write to us at the Holiday and Cruise Channel, Cavendish House, Brighton Road, Liverpool, L22 5NG. Now here on the clinic we are regularly joined by our friends and colleagues from all the major cruise lines, and something that's becoming more and more clear is how great a cruise holiday can be, and that's even before you've taken a step ashore in some of the ports. But when you do take that walk along the gangplank, where do you go next? What do you do? How do you best take in the cultural flavour of the destination? Here to tell us more about Bespoke Cruise Excursions is Jo Grove from Tripashore. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're most welcome.
I'm most excited because I love hearing about destinations. So let's kick off with your favourite.
I've got so many favourites.
Oh, well, we've got plenty of time, Jo. Don't worry about that.
I'm really lucky. I've worked on cruise ships on board for just over 8 years, and I've now come shoreside, but I'm lucky enough to have pretty much tried a shore excursion in every port all over the world. But for me, I think anything that's a little bit different. I love going to places that you can't usually go to on a normal holiday. So places like American Samoa, to go on a little colourful bus where the locals have decorated it with flowers just to welcome you because you're the only visitor that they've had for 4 months. And, you know, that's a real treat. Anything really that shows you a little bit of culture that's completely different to your own, I think is a really amazing opportunity, because let's be honest, when we go on a cruise, you'd like to think that most people don't go just to sit on a cruise ship for 2 weeks. They go because they want to experience different cultures and see all these amazing places.
And is a tour, an excursion, absolutely essential to take in the culture?
The culture, I think, yes. You don't have to go on a tour, let's be honest. Lots of us, you know, have been to some of these places that cruise ships call in time and time again. And you can, of course, just wander off the ship and do your own thing. But I think if you really want to immerse yourself in a different culture and really see the best of the places, I think a tour is just so valuable. You learn so much from the local people. For me, I would absolutely recommend a tour every single time.
What about tours around the world? Because there are certain parts of the world that maybe have a better tour. Do you think if you're going there you can't miss it, you've got to do this one?
Absolutely. There are some places that, you know, you don't need to. The world's getting smaller every day. Lots of us travel over and over again now. But there are some places that I think, you know, it's quite important, rather than just getting on a great big bus and driving around and having somebody say, look at that, to really get inside and experience it rather than seeing it. I think that's the thing about an excursion. You don't just see places, you experience them. And I think that can really make or break a cruise holiday.
Would you suggest that perhaps if somebody was new to cruising and it was their first time and they're a bit out of their comfort zone, maybe they should just stick to the normal excursions and tours and see the places that really are popular, and that you can come home and say, oh, guess what, I saw the whatever in the whatever?
Yes. But as I say, the world's getting smaller all the time, and lots of us can come back and say, I've seen it. But if you get off a ship in Southampton and walk around the port, you can't go away and say, I've seen England. And I think there's lots of places around the world that, you know, if you just walk around where the cruise ship docks, you can't go home and say, I've seen and experienced that. And I think that's really important, especially in a lot of the further flung places. I think to actually go off with a local expert who speaks the language, shops in the local market, and can say to you, taste this or smell this, and, you know, to really get a flavour of the local area and the customs and the traditions of the people. I think that can absolutely make a holiday. And let's be honest, the biggest thing that everyone wants to do on a cruise is come back to the ship and sit at the table in the evening and boast to everybody at the table about, guess what I did today. And if you're the person that says, I just got off and wandered around the port area, you're the person who goes home at the end of your holiday and says, everybody else really experienced that place and I just saw a couple of local shops.
So perhaps push your comfort zone out a little bit and just experience it so you don't come home with any regrets.
Absolutely. I always said to people, when on any of the ships that I worked on, especially on a world cruise, try and think of yourself as a traveller as opposed to a cruiser. Because it's very easy to go on a cruise and live in 5-star luxury and have a wonderful holiday, but you could do that anywhere in the world. And, you know, you're going to go to places on a cruise that aren't polished and sparkling and beautiful like a cruise ship. The cruise ships don't pull into these ports and go out and sweep the streets and make them all lovely for you. You have to really switch your mindset that when you walk down that gangway, you're going into a completely unknown place, into a brand new culture. And to take the best away from it, you have to go with a totally open mind and just embrace everything.
Now, some feedback that we've had here is that people have been, feel that they've been ripped off in the past with cruise lines, and out of principle, they don't book tours anymore, they do their own thing. What would your response be to that?
I think the people in that situation are the ones that don't necessarily do the research in advance. Yes, the cruise lines, as a rule, if you leave it to the last minute and book a tour on a cruise, you're paying a lot more for what you get. I think there are lots of other options out there now. And if you shop around a little bit, you can really get value for money. It's not about saving money and doing something cheap. It's getting the most amount you possibly can from what you're spending and what you're looking for.
Well, while we're talking about spending and budgets, are there tours to sort of fit everybody's budget? You know, you can get the ones that are quite expensive where you go in a helicopter and you do this and you do the other. Yeah. But are there ones where it's a walking tour and it's perfectly affordable, but you'll find out a lot about the history?
Absolutely. And for me, I think a smaller group is the way to go.
Ah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Is that because it's more intimate, you can get more chatty? And
Absolutely. I've been on tours all over the world when you sit on a 50-seater coach and there's people at the back that can't quite hear because you're in a place that's not particularly wealthy, so the buses aren't sparkling and high tech. I think if you can go in a small group, you're not wasting time waiting for people to get on and off of buses. You're not spending lots of time in queues to get into highlight destinations. You can fast track a lot of the queues, and you get more rapport with your guide. You can ask questions that you don't necessarily feel that you can if you're sitting at the back behind 25 other rows of seats. So for me, that's absolutely the best way to get your best value for money.
And what would you say about, now listen, I'm uber organised, I like a spreadsheet on holiday and everything.
Okay.
There's nothing left to going wrong here. But you're suggesting we need to pre-book our tours and do our research ahead of time to what we want to see, and then we'll get best value for money and actually get on the trips that we want to go on.
Absolutely. If you leave it to the last minute, you're taking the chance that the tour that you want to go on is fully booked as it is. You'd be amazed the amount of people that go on a ship and say, where are we going? And they don't even know what ports we're going to, let alone what tour they're going to do. But as I said, they're the people that sit at the dinner table in the evening and hear everybody else's stories about this amazing church that they've been into, or the fact that they've been harnessed and zip-lined across a volcanic field. And they're the people that hear of everyone else's stories and think, if we'd have done a little bit more research, we could have done something amazing as well.
And actually, planning a holiday, the research bit of an evening when you sat down together, I think is the fun bit where you're, oh, this looks nice and this looks nice. Your holiday starts early.
Absolutely. You need something to look forward to. And I think if you've got an idea about what's available in all of these places, then that's where you can start asking other people. Have you ever been to Norway and sat in a remote log cabin and watched the Northern Lights? Actually, yeah, I have. Why don't you think about it? And when you start planning and talking to other people, that's sometimes when you get your best ideas.
So, Jo, would your advice be, once you've booked your cruise, try and book your excursion, your tours as soon as possible, because I know sort of they open up certain days in advance, don't they, for booking. So as soon as you set a reminder to yourself.
Absolutely. And it's only actually the cruise lines, the cruise line tours themselves that have a time span of when you can book. There are other companies out there that are on sale all the time. So it's only if you want to book through the cruise line that you have to wait and then quickly try and get in at the last minute so you don't miss out on your excursion. But shop around, there are lots of other options out there.
Well, we're going to talk about booking independently and hopefully putting people out of the comfort zone, because we do like to be organised.
Absolutely.
And telling people that, you know, it can be done. Don't go anywhere, we're going to have a quick break.
Okay.
Now, before we do head off to our break, let me tell you about this. It's our first time guide to cruise holidays, and it's well worth asking for because it's absolutely free of charge. Just give us a call, 03330 032 216. Calls will be charged at standard national rates, and you can also ask for a copy through our website, www.holidayandcruisechannel.co.uk. And whilst you're asking for this, we'll take a quick break. See you shortly. Welcome back to the Holiday and Cruise Clinic. It's lovely to have you with us. In today's programme, we're discussing bespoke cruise excursions, and Jo Grove is still with me. Now, let's talk about being a little bit adventurous and planning well ahead and booking with a tour independently, and how that would work and how you can trust somebody and how it works with sort of planning your time. So talk us through it.
For me, I think what's most important is to find a company that has experienced cruisers organising the excursions. That's the biggest thing for me. There's no point going through a company that organise tours from the inside of an office and nobody in the office has ever been on a cruise before. You need to know what you're talking about. And I think if you can find a company that advertises itself as being run by cruise experts for cruise people, you're pretty much guaranteed to find someone that's been there, seen it, done it, and tried and tested it before. I think a lot of people are put off booking excursions directly with the cruise line because a lot of people, once they've done one cruise, are hooked. They sail repeatedly. And I think very often newcomers will book a tour with the cruise line directly, but you soon realise that the tours, pretty much the same tours, run year after year after year. And when you've been to somewhere a couple of times, you want to do something a little bit different. And it's people who have cruised, worked on cruise ships, that know the tours and get feedback from people about what sort of things they like to do. They're the best people to say, don't have lunch in a big 5-star hotel. Let's go to a Greek taverna where you can sit under grapevines and drink ouzo and do it traditionally. And I think there's absolutely no need to be afraid of going off and booking something independently, because there are some really fantastic companies out there that offer a lot for your money.
Which we enjoy. We
Absolutely.
love value for money. Are there any hidden extras if you're booking independently?
With some companies, yes, and you need to be a little bit careful. Just because certain operators offer something cheaper doesn't mean that you're getting value for money. Quite often you could get a much cheaper version of a tour than you can on a cruise line, but you suddenly find out that not everything is inclusive. So you've got a cheaper deal, you get to a highlight destination and find out that your entrance fees aren't included. So shop around a little bit, because there are different companies that offer fully inclusive. You might pay a little bit more, but if you're getting quality and you're jumping queues and you're getting lots of little extras, that's worthwhile, definitely.
Now, I know this might sound like a really basic question, but I'm going to ask it just in case anybody at home is watching and thinking, please ask this question. Because it's booked independently with an independent company, they will know the times you have to be back and ready to set sail. There'll be no real panic, will they? We're all working to the same time scale. Absolutely.
It's one of the things that when you're on a cruise, you are conditioned to think about, am I going to get back to the ship in time?
I'm panicking about it and I'm not going till next year.
Absolutely. And yes, generally cruise tour operators in the UK run excursions through local operators. We know what time the ship's sailing and when it's coming back, and the tours will be organised to make sure you're back in plenty of time. Again, do your research. Some operators in the UK will offer a guarantee that if for any reason you miss the ship, you will be guaranteed to join the ship in the next port, all expenses paid. I think, do your research. There are reputable companies out there that will completely look after you and offer you just as many guarantees as the cruise lines do.
I think perhaps what we're doing here is helping people out, because when you book a cruise, you have the comfort that it's all booked for you and it's organised. And now what we're doing is also saying, look, you know, it is as organised if you book these tours independently.
Absolutely.
You don't need to panic too much. Let's talk about boring paperwork now.
Okay.
Visas. Who organises those if we're, for example, St. Petersburg?
St. Petersburg's a funny place. In the past, it always used to be that if you wanted to leave a ship, you had to book a tour through the cruise line. That was always the case. If you didn't book a tour with your cruise line, you couldn't get off the ship. Now that's not the case. And I think, again, do your research, speak to reputable cruise tour companies in the UK, and your visas will be organised for you. With somewhere like Russia, as a rule, if you book a shore excursion for Russia, the cost will include your visa. It should do.
Oh, it should, but make sure.
Absolutely.
Tick the box. What about being in large groups? What if you wanted just a little romantic tour, you're on your honeymoon, you don't fancy being with another 20 people? Is that possible?
Absolutely. You can organise private tours if you want to, but you don't necessarily have to spend all of that money just to do it for yourself. There are companies out there that offer small group tours. And like I said earlier, that's the best way to take the most away from a destination, because you've got that intimate feeling without having to pay out extortionate amounts of money for a private tour. But you know, there are tours out there. Who wants to see the Northern Lights and be on a coach of 50 people turning up into a snowfield on a huge high-tech coach? What you want to do is be a little group of 6 or 8 and turn up on the back of a husky sledge.
I do, you're quite right.
Absolutely. But shop around a little bit. You don't have to do the 50-seater coach that's booked through the cruise line. There are other ways of doing it, and quite often they will be the best stories at the dinner table in the evening.
When we're talking about these sort of private, more intimate tours, you think, oh, it's really going to cost me, it's going to be really expensive, so I won't bother. But is that the case?
Not at all. Not at all. You'd be surprised. We're all very conditioned into thinking that's the case, and historically that has been the case. But I think now there's so much competition on the market, and so much variety out there, you don't have to spend a fortune. You know, for me, it's a bit like supermarkets. You pay a little bit more, but you get quality. If you want to go cheap and cheerful, by all means you can do, but I think it's not necessarily about saving money, it's about getting the best value for money. And it's by doing a small group or more of a private excursion, that's the way to get the most amount for your money. And
have the experience,
Absolutely.
Get a better experience. Let's talk about people with disabilities. Mm-hmm. Can we cater for people with disabilities on independent tours as long as it's flagged up ahead of time?
Generally, yes. It depends where in the world you're going, if I'm honest with you. If you're talking physical disabilities and you've got a wheelchair with you, somewhere like Norway is a great place to travel. They've got all the high-tech buses you can imagine. The Caribbean is a lot more difficult. They've got no coaches. Everything's on a minibus, and there's no storage for a wheelchair. So I think depending on where you want to go and what you want to do, again, do your research in advance. There's no reason why you can't do everything, as long as you've planned it ahead of time.
Let's talk now about sort of excursions that you would personally recommend to people, because I think that cruising has opened up the world to us. I honestly do. I think we're going to places we would never have gone to before because we've got the security of somebody else looking after us now.
Absolutely.
So with that in mind, the world is our oyster. Where would you recommend personally?
Personally, I think anywhere that takes you to somewhere that you wouldn't necessarily do on your own. I think that's the best thing about going as part of an excursion. You get to break a few barriers, and I think anywhere that takes you through a market where you've got the smells and the atmosphere and the intense heat, that's the place, that's the time, I think, to do an excursion. I've been to Bangkok a couple of times, and I've done the sitting on a huge coach, sitting in traffic for 2 hours, looking at people outside, you know, carrying baskets of limes. The best tour I ever did in Bangkok was where I took to the streets on foot and walked all through the local markets, because I think a lot of us have memories that are provoked by other senses than just seeing something. And I think if you come back and you smell wood smoke, quite often you can say, that reminds me of when I was in Nepal, and, you know, and walk through that little hilltop village. And I think it's there where you can really get in amongst all of the culture and get all of your senses inspired. That's the best kind of excursion to do.
With these excursions, we do seem to spend a lot of time sort of everybody getting on the coach, everybody getting off the coach. Then there's a little break, everybody have a little break, but you've all got to be back in 15 minutes and blah, 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 blah. Is there any way you could actually, I just want to see this stunning cathedral. That's all I want to go and see and find out about the history about it and the saints and this, that and the other. Is there any way of just doing that? Absolutely.
And again, that comes down to planning in advance. I think generally if you leave your planning until the last minute, get on board a ship and book a tour because you think, well, that goes to that cathedral, you're going to be waiting 15 minutes for 50 people to get off a bus. If you organise yourself a smaller group tour, that's when you'll really get inside. You'll bypass all of the queues. You won't have to stand in line waiting for 50 other people to follow the guide with their umbrella or their lollipop in the air. It's absolutely perfect, perfectly feasible to do. Again, you've just got to plan your time in advance. Don't leave it till the last minute and you can have the best holiday ever. We are running out of time, but we didn't actually get your favourite destination out of you at the top of the show. I've given you time to think about it now. So, best place that you've ever been to and that you would recommend that we go to, and why? American Samoa. Okay. Because it's somewhere that nobody goes to on holiday. It's a tiny little couple of islands in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And it's got the most fascinating culture, the friendliest people, the most amazing little minibuses that are decorated by the locals because they're just so excited that you've turned up to their island. Without a doubt, that is the one place I would say if you get the opportunity to go, grab it with both hands. I like to think I have the best job in the world. I may be wrong. I think it could be you. Let's swap. Okay. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been absolutely riveting. Thank you so much, Jo. Now, before we head off, just a quick reminder about this. It's our first time guide to cruise holidays and it's absolutely free of charge. Just give us a call, 03330 032 216. Calls will be charged at standard national rates, and don't forget you can also ask for a copy through our website www.holidayandcruisechannel.co.uk, where you can also get in touch with your questions for future programmes. Okay, that's all we've got time for on today's edition of the Holiday and Cruise Clinic. My huge thanks to Jo Grove, and thanks to you for watching. I'll see you next time.